And our last speaker this morning is Phil Simon. Phil's been at the University of Wisconsin-Madison for 35 years. And he's a USDA research scientist and in the vegetable crops unit at Madison. Did I get that right?
Thanks, Bill. So thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today about the Carrot Improvement for Organic Ag project. I'll stand here so Paul can see as well, hopefully. And maybe this will help move things forward. So this is a fairly large project. It's an OREI funded project. We're really grateful for that funding. I'll talk about the professional associations of the co-authors on the project as we go along here, rather than try and fit them in at the onset. But we're looking at several aspects of improving the carrot crop for organic growers, primarily looking at it from a breeding perspective, but also trying to get some information that can help growers as well. Let's see. So who needs better carrots? That question comes to us as breeders on a daily basis, pretty much. There's carrots in the store every day. There's never a shortage in the U.S. But why in the world do we bother needing to do any breeding for the crop? Well, looking at organic carrot production in particular, this is a commodity that has a fairly large percentage of its production on organic with organic practices on organic land. So there's a large and I would say a growing basis of users out there, stakeholders in the organic community. What are organic growers looking for with the Organic Seed Alliance information and other sources? A lot of the background we have comes from OSA. Jared talked about some of the surveying that they're doing and that's ongoing. But we have some idea of what organic growers are looking for, and one of the things they're looking for are not only orange carrots, but some of the novel colors that are available, because this adds to the potential of getting a market niche identity for those growers. In addition to that, since organic production has limited range of limited arsenal for pest and disease control, genetic resistance for nematodes and leaf blights in particular are important for organic growers, because these are the major diseases and pests in U.S. production. Sarah introduced this topic already, but weed competitiveness is also interesting. I spent all my career in carrots, and we've spent pretty much all of our time underground looking at the root, other than disease resistance on the leaves. It's only with Sarah's project that we're first beginning to look at top size, because the organic growers have said that hand weeding of carrots can and often is the most expensive management expense that they have in growing the crop. Some of the large-scale organic growers in California said they're paying, not on a regular basis, I hope, but they're paying up to $6,000 an acre for hand weeding carrots. That eats into your profits in a significant way. So weed competitiveness is something that we included in this project with that in mind, looking at early vigor and canopy sizing, and not to reiterate what Sarah talked about, but just to point that out. Those are some major issues that the organic growers are interested. Consumers are interested in these in different colors, but also convenience. That's the inception of baby carrots. Is we pay a lot for baby carrots, organic or conventional, because we paid somebody else roughly 3 times as much for the carrots to cut them and peel them for us, and so that translates to a high value to not only the grower and processor and shipper, but to the grocery stores as well. So it's a great added value, and it does increase carrot consumption a bit. So color, convenience, and good flavor, and quality. And so from a quality standpoint, we're primarily evaluating sweetness and harshness based on some early work we did as being the major culinary or organoleptic traits important for fresh market carrots. We also look at crunchiness or sweetness in the evaluations, and all of these 3 organoleptic variables do vary significantly among carrot varieties. Along the way, we're also looking at nutritional value because consumers are interested in more nutritious foods and more nutritious carrots. Carrots have a very positive impression amongst consumers as being nutritious. We want to make sure that that continues. And there's a lot of genetic variation for nutrition in carrots and what we can do, so why not take advantage of that variation and capitalize on it and deliver it to consumers. And by nutrition, we're primarily looking at carotenoid content, those provitamin A carotenoids, which contribute more than 10% of the vitamin A in the U.S. diet just by carrots alone, but also things like the antioxidants that come with the purple pigments and anthocyanins in purple carrots, and the lycopene in red carrots and lutein in yellow carrots, which all have health implications beyond the provitamin A value of the carotenoids, orange carotenoids in orange carrots. So consumers are interested in carrots from a range for a range of reasons, and so these are some things we can in fact address in a breeding program. So what does this project look to do? A big part of the project is to provide information for growers and consumers, because those are our ultimate stakeholders. The project involves some significant field trialing in 4 locations with carrots grown under organic and conventional management in each of those 4 locations over 4 years, where we're looking at yield aspects and also appearance, some evaluation of flavor, harshness, and sweetness, and we're evaluating nutritional value. I mentioned carotenoids, anthocyanins, some subset of evaluation looking at nitrates, where there's genetic variation and nitrate accumulation is a factor, especially in Europe, but we're just looking at this in a smaller side project. Paying close attention to the disease resistance, we intentionally included some resistance susceptible varieties in the materials being tested. Similarly for nematode resistance, because of its important, and we're looking primarily at nematodes for California production. There are nematodes we should be evaluating but haven't been testing for yet in northern production areas. Looking also at soil quality in both conventional and organic sites as we go along, to see how those soil quality characteristics may relate to the productivity, nutritional value, and other aspects of the project. And as Sarah already amply introduced, looking at top size as it relates to weed competitiveness. So the 4 individuals who have taken the lead on the trialing for the project are Erin Silva in Wisconsin, Lori Hoagland in Indiana, Tim Waters in Washington, Joe Nunez in California. Carrot's an interesting crop in that you can grow the same cultivars in the north in the summer and in the south in the winter, and so Joe's winter crop in the Bakersfield area is an interesting aspect of the evaluation, because we have this flexibility with this crop. So the exact associations of each of the individuals that's listed here, I won't go through it, but again, it's organic and conventional paired management trials on each location for each year, where we have 36 entries, which include 20 cultivars. We aim to include the major cultivars used for carrots in the U.S., as well as 16 breeding stocks to look at their possibility for but first of all, the general performance, but then their possibility that they may in fact be germplasm we could release in the project. And with this 4-year evaluation of trialing, where we're coming into the 4th year right now. I won't read the names of the carrot varieties, but simply show them to you that these are the 16 cultivars that are included over the 2 years. I'll show you a few pictures of them. They're primarily orange, but we've got some yellow and some purple showing up in the group as well. Again, aiming to have the major varieties that the organic growers are using, so that as we generate information and put it at the website, growers, not only these growers but other growers that are interested in growing carrots, can go to the website and access that information, get some background to advise them as to what they might grow and what they might expect when they are growing it. So again, to populate that website with information that that's intended to be of use for growers. So some pictures of carrots, of course, we must include, in some of the standard varieties, cultivars, Red Chardonnay, Bolero, Western Red are 3 of the orange varieties that are widely used by the organic community. Some other widely grown ones for cut and peel carrots, which is a sizable market out of the California production, are Sun 55 and Sugar Snacks. Brasilia is included. That's really not grown in the U.S., but we included it because it has a lot of disease resistance and also some early seedling growth that we find positive. In terms of the experimental cultivars or varieties or selections that we have under evaluation, things like this nematode-resistant carrot, which was developed in conjunction with Phil Roberts because of the need for that resistance, but also some interesting colors, some yellows and reds, which doesn't show up very well there perhaps, but that's a high lycopene carrot that's out of a Korean and Chinese background, but performed pretty well in our trials. And purple carrots are of interest to growers and to consumers, those brave enough to place a purple carrot in their mouth, which some consumers are not brave enough to, but we're growing different types of purples. There's different color combinations. You can have orange and purple, yellow and purple, and solid purple. So a range of colors, again, with the idea that some of these unique color combinations provide some market niche possibilities for growers. So what have we learned so far from these 4-location field trials? Looking at the field traits and flavor in these CIOA trials to date, the large genetic variation that we anticipated to see in the trials, we in fact are seeing. There's a big genotype effect on performance of carrots. It turns out that the genotype effect was relatively consistent from location to location, not necessarily in absolute values, but when you look at rankings of both yield and flavor across locations, the rankings tend to be quite similar in these very different growing locations. There was relatively, from the data we've looked at so far, in terms of mean values, there's relatively little difference that's attributable to production system as an interaction with variety. What that means, production system would be conventional organic, not a significant effect on the traits that we looked at, going cultivar by cultivar, again making the organic conventional comparison. That's for the means. So the same observations for flavor. The rankings are the same in organic and conventional, pretty much. But what does differ as a function of organic and conventional is cultivar stability. I'm not going to go through it in detail. We've got a poster out of it down in the lobby. But stability is a very important trait that quite a few talks, I think pretty much all the talks we've had in the last couple of days, reflect on. Things like a workhorse variety is a stable variety, and reliable performance is something that a grower needs to have. And whereas the means are relatively similar in ranking across these different growing locations and conventional organic, the stability is not necessarily the same. And some of the entries are much more stable than others. And yes, the varieties that are more widely grown by the growers, the named varieties, tend to be more stable, not always. And so I think that helps us understand maybe why they're widely grown. The growers realize they've got something they can rely on, and if you're planting a crop in spring, you want to have something there to sell later in the year. So stability is an issue that I'm not presenting any data on, but it's one that we're paying a lot of attention to. I think when we look at organic production, we tend to introduce the crop to growing conditions that can be a little more stressful than conventional. That's not always the case, but and I'm not sure if you would agree with that trend. I'd be glad to hear your thoughts on it. But anyway, the exposure of something like carrots to stress raises the prospects for bad flavor to show up, for instance. If you give a carrot an optimal growing condition, if it's genetically got bad flavor, it's not going to make it good, but it's not going to be quite so bad. If you put a carrot in more stressful, borderline good-tasting carrot in stressful conditions, it's going to taste bad. And so I think that may contribute to the stability issue as well, not only in flavor, but in the production characteristics as well. Analysis of nutrients is going on, so I won't say much about it. The trends are generally the same. So in terms of what we're looking at on these 4-location trials, the yield and flavor issues and nutritional value are things that we're looking at on the trials. In addition to that, we have specific projects that we've teased out in this larger CIOA project, looking at disease resistance, nematode resistance, relationship of quality in carrot growth, and top size weed competition. So talk about those a little bit. In terms of people on the program that are looking at these other more heavily investigated aspects of carrot production. Lindsey du Toit, Washington State, is providing her expertise in helping us diagnose diseases that show up in carrots in these locations, with the idea that then growers from at least those regions can get an idea what they can expect when they grow the crop. And Lindsey's found Alternarius cercospora, Xanthomonas, powdery mildew, pretty much the usual suspects, but not necessarily the incidence and location where you expect them. So it's valuable information that we're populating at the website. Pamela Marino is a grad student working with me, looking at Alternaria leaf blight resistance because of its importance for carrot production, and also looking at the entries in this trial, as well as some experimental populations that she's looking at some new sources of resistance as part of this project. So moving on from leaf blight resistance and leaf diseases to root diseases, I've had some long-going interaction with Phil Roberts at UC Riverside, looking for nematode resistance in carrots, starting out particularly with the variety Brasilia, which is actually included in the CIOA project trials. Brasilia is known to be resistant to the diseases, and in fact it turns out to be, you don't need to be a nematologist to pick out the resistance and susceptible roots in this Brasilia population that was grown out 20 years ago, and taking that resistance and moving it into different genetic backgrounds for the cut and peel industry, but also these are undersized immature carrots, but these are purples and yellows that the derivatives of which have ended up as experimentals in the CIOA project. So identifying resistance in these different sources and then moving it into materials for this project. So Phil Roberts, again, is at UC Riverside. 80% of the U.S. carrot production is infested, areas infested with these nematodes, Malayagania javanica and incognita in particular in California. And so resistance is important, and we've got this resistance in 9 of the entries, and we're looking at their performance not only in terms of nematode resistance, but the on-trial as evaluation as well. And but also doing some additional selection for resistance in Phil's infested fields in California, and also his greenhouse evaluations. Former grad student on the project, now graduated, Josh Parsons, was involved in this project and identified 3 major QTLs for incognita resistance as part of the project. Looking at an additional aspect of carrot growth and production is what does soil quality, how does soil quality relate to carrot growth? And Lori Hoagland at Purdue is looking at this. And she's been evaluating all the soils for the trials that we're evaluating across the 4 locations, evaluating differences in organic and conventional paired trials for things like the labile organic pools and the bacterial, fungal, and archaeal communities in those locations. She has a grad student, Sahar Abdul Razak, looking at carrot variation in response to endophytes, or maybe it's endophyte response to carrots, but anyway, it's the association of endophytes to carrots as they relate to some of these growing conditions, and as a part of this project, to see how that endophyte population may change as a function of both carrot genotype, growing location as well. So I won't say too much about carrot top size because of Sarah's comprehensive evaluation that she's got underway, but this is what harvest time will look like for us next week when we're harvesting in El Centro, some big tops and some small tops, along with Sarah's project where she's looking at both early growth and top size. Going back to some of the questions that came out here before, Jed Colquhoun and I really needed to have Jed Colquhoun and Lori McKenzie. I'm sorry I left Lori off of this left, but Jed Colquhoun and Lori are doing weed competitiveness evaluations because of the high cost of weed control, looking at weeded and unweeded plots to see what the effect of the weed competition is on all the aspects of carrot growth that we've talked about, both root and top growth. The outreach and education aspect of the CIOA project, everybody's involved in, but really Michaela, Lori, Jared, and Kat have taken the lead at the OSA in this regard. And we have again, thanks to OSA, put together an advisory panel of organic carrot growers. We're working on outreach and education to farmers on organic breeding and variety trialing. We have some on-farm trialing underway. We've got one extensive years of evaluation under our belt. We've got another one or two that we're going to be doing because of the importance of on-farm trialing to really verify the observations that we're seeing on the trials. And I should have pointed out that the trialing that's being done at Purdue by Lori and at Wisconsin by Erin are on university organic conventional. The trialing done in Washington by Tim Waters and in California by Joe Nunez are actually on growers' fields. So we've got a little bit of on-farm already from the 4-location trialing, but we're extending that to generally smaller scale growers than, at least from the California growers that Joe's working with, but on-farm trialing with a number of interested growers to evaluate the breeding stocks that we have in mind as potential for germplasm releases with this project. So the coordination of these this project with the grower education didn't say anything about seed production, but seed production of some of these up and coming entries in the experimentals that we have is something that we're and again, this is primarily the OSA group is focusing on getting some seed production for these potential germplasm releases so we can do some more trialing and roll out this germplasm. And one other thing that Michaela has taken lead on is some grower-chef collaborations that we've got underway. So we've got some East Coast and some West Coast and some Midwest grower-chef, because I know Julie's doing some of this as well. But we'll see if the chefs of the West Coast agree with the Midwestern parts. But we will have a competition or something. That's a good way to get interest in crops, is get these kind of competitions. But there we go. Yeah, that's right. We can start a TV show. But that's right. It's a different kind of location and a different kind of environment. But these kinds of interactions beyond the experimental fields, into the growers' fields, onto the consumers by way of the chefs is obviously important in terms of deploying some of the genetic variation that we see as beneficial for the organic carrot production industry. Upcoming activities, we've got one more year of the 4-year trialing, continuing ongoing research projects, another year of wheat competitiveness that we're going to be looking at. We're putting together more information on the 36 entries at our eOrganic website listed here. I mentioned getting some of the seed increases for those items that we're looking at for germplasm releases, more field days, more grower meetings, and more surveys. And with that, I will conclude my presentation, and thank you.